Good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching tonight. I am Jennifer Zimdahl-Galt, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in charge of the State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. I am a career Foreign Service officer, and until a week ago, I was United States Ambassador to Mongolia. So throughout my career, it's been a privilege to support the State Department's many educational exchange programs. We sponsor a number of different programs that both bring international students to the United States and also take Americans overseas. We believe that the globalization of American college and university campuses is in the United States' national interest, to help us gather a global perspective on the challenges that we all share in our shared global world. We also provide Education USA services in all of the countries where our participants live on today's Facebook chat. Education USA are free services that provide information for how to navigate the U.S. educational system. So we have close to 4,000 colleges and universities, and through Education USA, we provide information for how to choose the school that is right for you. So part of the process of applying to study in the United States is, of course, receiving a visa receiving a student visa, which is one of our short-term non-immigrant visas. And I am thrilled to have with me today Lisa Overman, who is a consular officer, a career consular officer, and that means that I'm going to ask her to answer all of your tough questions. And I thought maybe I'd start off by asking Lisa to introduce herself, but also I'm going to throw out the first question, which is to help us all understand the alphabet soup of student visas. There are F visas, there are J visas, there are M visas, there might even be others that I haven't thought of. Tell us a little bit about yourself and help us understand all those letters and what they mean.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ambassador Galt. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So we're looking forward to some great questions and a great discussion today on student visas, but even broader than that, about studying in the United States. So as the ambassador introduced me, my name is Lisa Overman, and I am also a career Foreign Service officer with the U.S. Department of State. And I currently work in our Bureau of Consular Affairs. So this is our bureau within the State Department that is concerned with immigration policy, visa issues, and anything that has to do with coming to the United States, whether you're coming as a student or wanting to immigrate to the United States. So I'm really looking forward to being here and providing as much information to you so that you know what you need in order to have a successful time studying in the United States. So Ambassador, as you mentioned, there is quite an alphabet soup of visa categories. In fact, there's over 26, I believe, different kinds of visa categories.
Goodness gracious, maybe keep us to the student categories.
Absolutely. So our primary student visa categories are F, M, and J. Those are the three primary ones. Now, for our viewers, I want to make sure you don't have to be as concerned about which visa category you need. It will depend on the institution that you're going to be studying at and what program you plan to pursue while you're in the United States. But in order for you to have a better understanding, let's talk through the three different categories. The first one is the F category. This is probably one of our most common. This is for a student who is in an academic or a language program. So if you're coming to the United States for a 4-year university degree, or you're coming to study English, this would be the visa type that you would most commonly receive.
Great.
If you're coming for a shorter term opportunity, like summer work travel, which many of our students, international students, like to pursue for a short period of time during the summer, you would be getting a J visa. And this visa is, again, for those short-term exchange opportunities. It might also be for those that are coming to study in high school here. They might get a J visa. Or anyone pursuing a degree or not a degree. It depends, again, on the program and the institution where they will be studying.
Right.
Finally, the M visa is probably the least known category because it's not the most common, but this is for anyone coming to pursue a vocational type of education, or a non-academic student who might be auditing some courses or taking some other non-academic type of learning or education program in the United States. But again, the most important thing is that your institution or the course of study you will be pursuing will determine that visa type. So for those that are concerned about which one to apply for, that is not the biggest concern, but it's very important to understand the differences.
Terrific. Thank you, Lisa. I've learned something, and I hope our viewers have as well. The United States welcomes international students in all of these categories: academic, practical training, English language training. We currently have more than 1 million international students studying at U.S. colleges and universities. So we continue to welcome international students from all over the world. So and I'm going to throw this question back at Lisa again. The first question that we have in is, what does a prospective student or exchange participant need before they apply for a visa? So what did these 1 million plus students need to apply?
Well, they really need the services and the resources that the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs provides.
Fabulous.
Absolutely. And as you had mentioned at the very beginning, the Education USA advisors that are available around the world in many of these countries where our prospective students are coming from are really a great first step for any prospective student before looking for a visa.
Agreed.
So I absolutely would love to have you maybe start that process, because really a student needs to figure out where they want to go and what they want to do here before they would apply for a visa. And I know that's absolutely something that you can speak to.
Absolutely. So Education USA advisors can help you match your academic goals or your practical training goals to the institution that is right for you. As I said, we have close to 4,000 educational institutions, so an Education USA advisor can help you navigate which one is the best fit for you. And then you can be in touch with that school, figure out the application process, and once you are in and receive the form that will allow you to apply for a visa, then you come in to the embassy or consulate in the city nearest you and apply for your student visa. And of course, on our embassy and consulate websites all over the world, we have detailed information on the visa application process. It is always available in both English and your local language. So we try to provide as much information as possible before you come in to apply. So let's see, what other questions might we have? So we have a question from Maria, who asks, my stepdaughter has been accepted by a school and filled out the DS-160. We already paid DS-160 and SEVIS fees. So are there any additional fees we need to pay before the interview? So there are some letters and numbers in there. So again, Lisa, can you help us interpret what all that means?
Absolutely, Ambassador. So before we actually get to that specific question, I think it's important to kind of go back just a few steps so we understand what these letters and numbers mean, as you explained, and also why those particular documents are so important.
Great.
So as you mentioned, once you've decided on the prospective school and the course of study you want, and as Ambassador Galt mentioned, you've received that acceptance, you then would go online to your embassy or consulate website, and you would see all the required documents. So you'll need that acceptance form from that school. You'll also need to fill out the online visa application form, which is the DS-160. And there is a fee associated with that application. So that's the fee, one of the fees that need to be paid before you come in for that interview.
Right.
There's also a SEVIS payment, and this is something with the Department of Education that needs to be paid online, Department of Homeland Security online, before you come in for your interview as well. Now, if you don't pay those fees before you come in for your interview, you may or may not receive your visa at the time. If you are approved, you would need to pay those fees before we can make any decision on the visa. So again,
good to know.
All that information is going to be available on that embassy or consulate website. You can also go to travel.state.gov and click on the student visa section, and it will again lay out all of the steps, all of the forms that you need, and all the fees that need to be paid.
Terrific, thank you. So we have another question. We have a prospective student here, Azar, who says, I have my interview next week. What types of questions will I be asked? And I might combine that with a question from Jean, who says, what information can I find on your website?
It's an excellent question. And you know, this is probably one of the most common concerns that we have with international students,
right,
is making sure they have the right information. So we know that if you're looking to study in the United States, there are many sources of information out there, but not all of them are accurate, yes, or correct, or they might even take advantage of you or cause you to have even more problems in the future studying in the United States. So really, we encourage any prospective students to go to official websites such as travel.state.gov, educationusa.gov, the embassy or consulate website for your country. That's going to be the most important and most accurate source of information regarding a student visa or studying in the United States.
As well, I would add the individual university or college where you're
Absolutely
planning to study or thinking about applying. Those are also very useful for information about the academic environment, life on campus, etc.
Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, and I'm sure you're aware of this, many of our embassies around the world have also created videos that, yes, you can look at on YouTube or other web video sharing sites that show what the interview process is actually like. And right, so this is also a great resource for anyone who's applying for the first time, has never had an interview, and doesn't know what that process is going to look like. So the things to keep in mind for an interview is we want to know why you want to study in the United States, what program you're studying, why you've chosen that particular program. We want to know a little bit more about who you are, what you currently are doing in your home country or in your home education system. We want to know how you're going to pay for your education in the United States. And we want to know about what your plans are once you've completed that course of study in the United States. So these are the kinds of questions and the kinds of information, along with many other kinds of things, but those are the primary questions that folks need to be prepared to answer when they come in for their interview.
I think those are all important. And our next questioner is right in line with that information. Thank you, Lisa. Kelly from Cameroon asks, I live in Cameroon. I would like to study in the US, but I don't have money. What can I do? So I would say the first thing you can do is go to exchanges.state.gov, which is the part of the State Department website that talks about the wide range of exchange programs that the State Department offers. The Fulbright is our preeminent academic scholarship, but there are dozens of other opportunities. I would also encourage you to explore and contact the universities and the colleges that you're applying to see if they have fellowship, scholarship opportunities available. So even Americans studying in universities, we often cobble together multiple sources of funding to come up with our tuition, room and board payments. So you will, as an international student, you will be right in line with American student habits in terms of looking for sources of funding. The next question is, Nagash from Pakistan, is the GRE required for admission in the US? So the GRE is the graduate record exam, and this would be a requirement for particular graduate degree programs, not for all graduate degree programs, and certainly not for undergraduate degree programs or for some of the practical training that Lisa talked about earlier. So again, you would want to talk to your Education USA advisor, also be in touch with the universities and colleges that you're applying to see if the GRE is in fact a requirement for the academic program that you're pursuing. But keep in mind, the GRE is an academic university requirement, not a visa requirement. So it's important to keep those two distinct as you're thinking about applying to schools in the US. So Wycliffe from Kenya asks, can I transfer my degree to the US, and how do I do this? So this is an important question for any student, whether you're an American transferring from one school to another, or an international student coming from abroad. Perhaps you did your first 2 years in Kenya. You'd like to come and do your final 2 years of university in the United States. Transfers are absolutely possible. I would highly recommend that you talk to our Education USA Advising Center in Nairobi to get the specific guidance on your individual situation. You will need to provide complete transcripts so that the U.S. school looking at your transcripts will be able to interpret where you fit in the U.S. system. U.S. colleges and universities have a pretty broad base of knowledge about international education systems. So they have a pretty good idea of where a Kenyan university student would fit in the United States, but you want to make sure that you're talking to the Education USA advisor in Nairobi who can help you through that process. So let's move on to a next question from Gus Barr, who says, can I get a student visa to study English in the US? Awesome question. We encourage the study of English overseas. The Department of State invests heavily in the study of English overseas, but we obviously have many programs for English for foreign students in the United States. So I'm going to turn back to Lisa, my resident visa expert, yes, to tell us a little bit about getting a visa to study English in the U.S.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, once you've just decided on that institution or that school or language school that you want to study English in the United States, then you would need to apply for a visa. Now, depending on the course of study that you are applying for, you may or may not need to conduct your visa interview in English. Mm-hmm. So if you're actually coming to study English in the United States, you would not need to have your visa interview in English, because we know that's the reason you're coming to the United States.
Right.
So the interview would be conducted in your own language. Now, if you are coming to study for anything else in the United States, there is an English requirement in order to be able to maintain the level of education and the level of study that is needed. And so that interview would be in English. But we know that that can be of concern. But if you're coming to study English in the United States, that would probably be, could be either an F or a J visa, as we talked about at the beginning of this chat.
Right.
So again, let the institution where you're studying make that determination for you, and then you'll come in and have all of the proper documentation, and we'll conduct that visa interview.
Terrific. Great. Thank you for that. The next question is, are there age limits for student visas?
So there are not age limits for the majority of the student visas. The one category that may have some concern in terms of age limit would be the summer work travel education program.
Good to know.
And that program specifically is for students that are currently engaged in an academic program. And so generally speaking, it will be those that are probably in their 20s, early 20s, most of the time, because that's the population that really is still involved in school, still getting their education program in their home country, right, and then coming to the United States for a short period of time. But really,
like good sense.
Any education, any university or college is going to accept probably a student of any age.
Absolutely. If you are pursuing a degree as an older person, as a second, to try to advance yourself in a second career, we obviously welcome international students of all ages. I want to just break in before our next question and let everybody know who we are in case you're just joining our Facebook chat today. I am Jennifer Zimdahl-Galt, the newly arrived Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in charge of the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the State Department. And my colleague Lisa Overman is my resident visa expert, a consular officer in the State Department's Bureau of Consular Affairs. So as we said when we started out, I'm happy to chat with everybody, but I'm going to hand all your tough questions over to Lisa. So we have the next one. Miraj and Shahriar want to know what options there are for master's students who want to study in the U.S. Sadly, this question probably falls to me, Lisa. So again, I would recommend that you both talk to the Education USA advisor in your country to find out about particular degree programs. The United States welcomes international students who are pursuing high school programs, bachelor's programs, master's, PhD programs, practical training, all kinds of educational experiences. So for the master's level, you might want to look at our Fulbright program, which is our flagship academic exchange program sponsored by the Department of State. So look at exchanges.state.gov, which is the part of the State Department website that describes all of our various exchange and fellowship opportunities. So next question up, we have from Jessica. What are the rules about residency for exchange visitors under Section 212E? Well, Jessica already knows more than I do, Lisa, so please help us decipher that.
Absolutely. She might know more than I do as well, but I will do my absolute best to address this very important question. So for many students who want to study in the United States, depending on the category or the particular industry that they are looking to study in the United States,
right,
it might be a category that has been determined of particular interest to their home country. So for example, if someone is coming to study hydroponics or some sort of agricultural sort of course of study in the United States.
Or maybe computer science.
Or
right,
engineering. Depending on their home country, whatever that particular industry is of particular importance to their home country, there's a residency requirement, which states that after you've completed your course of study in the United States, you are required to return to your home country to continue work in that particular sector. And the reason this is so important is because we want to make sure that the education that's being received in the United States is going back to actually help and enhance and improve and innovate that particular sector or industry in the home country. So that's what that residency requirement states. Now, that residency requirement will be determined at the time of the interview. There's a list that we have, and depending on each country, it could vary. It's not across every country, doesn't have every kind of residency requirement for every course of study, but it really does depend. Now, for a student who might be wanting to continue and pursue further education in the United States, they would need a waiver of that residency requirement. And that would be something that your education advisor, either at your home university or your university that you're studying at in the United States, can help you with that process.
Fabulous. I'm enjoying this. I just learned something new again. So thank you, Jessica, for helping us understand that. Diana asks, my sister is studying in Peru. Can she transfer to a school in the U.S.? So again, this is our second question that we've had on transferring today. Absolutely, yes. Transfers are more than welcome. But again, I would encourage you to talk to your Education USA advisor, and also between the universities that you're trying to transfer to, they could tell you how to translate your transcript, your experience in Peru, your sister's experience in Peru, into a university in the United States. So Ahmed asks, is there an exchange program for teachers? Absolutely. Yes, there is. We would welcome you to check out exchanges.state.gov, Ahmed, to look up a number of different exchange programs that we offer for teachers. So we welcome your interest. Connie, I've heard it's getting harder to get a student visa these days. Is that true? Well, I would say first off that we have just announced the number of international students in the United States. Very pleased to see that that number continues to go up again this year. We have 1,078,000, if I've got that number correct, currently in the United States. That's obviously a snapshot of the students who are on campus this year, but we are thrilled to see international students continuing to be interested in pursuing the innovative research-based institutions that we offer all across the United States. But specifically on the visa question, maybe I'd turn to Lisa to answer that side of the question.
Sure, no, thank you. This is, I think, to your point, we welcome international students in the United States, and we absolutely recognize the benefit of having international students in the United States, not just for the cultural exchange and for the opportunity to be exposed to other parts of the world, but also economically. Really, international students provide a great boost to the United States, and so we really appreciate those dollars that are coming in and helping to support our economy here.
It's one of our largest exports.
Absolutely.
So crucially important.
Absolutely. And so to that point, we recognize and we want to make sure we're facilitating legitimate travelers and legitimate students that are coming to the United States.
Yes.
So we hear this question a lot, very frequently. I actually hear it from universities in the United States who ask us if there are less students getting their visas. We hear it from our Congress folks that are also interested in international education and having their universities filled with these wonderful students coming. And the truth is that the number of students that are receiving visas is about 73%. So the vast majority of students are receiving those visas. And those that are not receiving those visas might be for a variety of different reasons. They may not be a legitimate student, or there could be something else happening that we can't speak to. But the majority of students are absolutely getting their visas to come to the United States, which
Fabulous.
is a great news story.
It is. So that's a pretty positive picture. Lazrak from Morocco asks our next question, which is, what exchange programs are there for high school students in the summertime? So we have a quick answer here, and we have an Education USA Academy for students aged 15 to 17. So I'm going to read this off the iPad here so I don't get the URL wrong. If you go to educationusaacademy.org, or contact your local U.S. Embassy Public Affairs section or Education USA advisor, they can give you information about exchange program opportunities for high school students. We welcome your interest. Gaspar, I think this might be his second question. If I'm studying English in the U.S., can my wife come with me? That is a question I'm going to turn back to Lisa. All the tough ones I promised I would give her. So Lisa, over to you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, I'm learning a lot as well about, being able to come as a high school student. That's a fascinating opportunity, and I think a great way to start your U.S. education experience. So that was a great question. So yes, if you are coming to study in the United States and you would like to bring your wife or your children with you, they absolutely can accompany you. Again, all that information will be available on travel.state.gov or on the U.S. Embassy or Consulate website in the country where you are applying.
Terrific.
They will need a derivative visa, as we call them, but absolutely you'll have to pay the fees, you'll have to provide the application forms, just as you would for yourself, but they absolutely can accompany you.
Terrific. And just to be clear, spouses in general, wives, husbands, all welcome to apply to accompany you when you come to study in the United States. So a next question is, Miraziz says, if I've been rejected for a tourist visa, do I have a chance to qualify for a student visa? Again, turning to my expert, Lisa.
So this is a great question, because many times I think people are a little confused about how an approval process works with visas, or how a denial works with visas. And so it's a really important question to understand the difference. So if you've applied for a tourist visa and you were denied, that does not mean the reasons that you were denied for the tourist visa would also apply to the student visa.
Good point. Good to know.
Every visa is adjudicated at that time according to the qualifications. So you may qualify for a student visa where you may not have qualified for a tourist visa.
Good to know.
And so these are really important things. Again, all the information that you would need, including the qualifications, will be available on those websites. And I know we keep talking about them, but it's so important to have the right information and to have the most accurate information so that you can move forward and have a successful visa application or study in the United States.
Absolutely. And every U.S. Embassy and Consulate overseas provides all of this information about the various visa categories, both in English and in your local language. And speaking of which, some of our questioners have told us where you're from. Please let us know where you're from when you type in your question. We'd love to know how wide our reach is this morning. We'd love to know where our questions are coming from. So we have another question from Raymond, who says, what are the dates for spring and fall admissions in the United States? Great question. Every country's educational system is on a slightly different calendar. It depends. The answer is it depends on the university or the school to which you're applying. So in general, colleges in the United States begin August, September, and then in the spring, probably January, February. But please check with the individual school, university that you're applying to, because every school is on a different calendar. We have schools that are on semesters, quarters, a wide variety. So check with the individual school so that you know exactly what your calendar might be. So Ahmed asks a question that I did not plant, I promise, but I'm so glad he asked this. What is the Fulbright program? He asks. Thank you, Ahmed, for asking that question. It gives me an opportunity to talk about the State Department's premier academic exchange program. We operate the Fulbright Academic Exchange Program in more than 100 countries all around the world. And it is conducted on a bi-national basis, which means that there is funding both from the United States government and from your government in the country where you are. So that means that it is a program to which we are dually committed, and we agree on an annual basis what fields of study your country would like students to travel in, what fields of study are important to the United States. So there are opportunities under the Fulbright program to study at the undergraduate level, to study at the graduate level, to do research from the US side, because the Fulbright program is in two directions. We also send Americans overseas. Excuse me. Under the Fulbright program, we send American students abroad to study. We send American graduate level researchers abroad who might have a specific research project in your home country. We also send American lecturers to teach for a year in a university overseas. So it's a hugely profitable program for both our countries. And I hope, Ahmed, that you will consider applying. It's a fantastic exchange program of which we are very proud to have alumni all over the world. So many different students, I understand this morning, many different participants have asked a similar question, which is, how can I participate in an exchange program? I think the most important thing to do is to go on our exchanges.state.gov website. So whether you're an American looking to study abroad or an international student looking for a fellowship opportunity in the United States, go on that website, look for all the different opportunities that might fit your needs and your interests. We encourage everyone to apply. So Hadak heard our request, and he tells us that he is from Nepal. So the question is, I already have a master's degree. Can I further my studies in the US, perhaps with a PhD? The answer is absolutely yes. We welcome you to apply. As we said earlier in this chat, we welcome international students at all levels of study. So high school, undergraduate, graduate. The United States has some of the world's most sophisticated research institutions. So we welcome international students in a wide variety of fields at the PhD level. So we encourage you to apply. Next, we have a question from Abdul, who says, does everyone need to take an English test? So the English language requirement is based on your proposed field of study. So we had a question earlier, for example, about English language. It is possible to come to the United States to study English, in which case you might have taken an English language test that indicates that you need further study. On the other hand, if you're coming, like our questioner from Nepal, to pursue a PhD, we would expect that you would already be proficient in English, in which case the TOEFL test or a similar English language test will indeed be required. The English language requirement is a requirement of your university, of your proposed field of study. So it's important, again, to be communicating with the student advisor at the university where you hope to study, and also talk with your Education USA advisor as to whether English will be required for your proposed field of study.
And Ambassador, if I
Yes,
might, I think
please.
this is a great opportunity to, again, remind our prospective students that if you are pursuing particularly a non-English language program in the United States, that you would be needing to conduct that visa interview in English. And so again, you should already hopefully have taken your standardized English test and have already been approved by your university that you're wanting to study at in the United States.
Good point.
And then we will provide that interview in English. Now, if you are, again, coming to the United States to study English for the first time or to improve your very basic English language skills, your interview would probably be in your own language and not in English, since we know that's the reason that you're coming to the United States. So I think that's a great thing just to keep in mind, because many students are not always aware that that might be the case during the visa interview.
Very, very good point. Thank you, Lisa, for that reminder for our listeners. So the next question comes from Marwa from Egypt. Thank you for telling us where you are, Marwa. And she says, I'm interested in women's entrepreneurship programs. So thank you for that interest. The Global Entrepreneurship Summit is coming up very soon in Hyderabad, so entrepreneurship is very much on our minds here at the State Department. The State Department and our partners have a wide variety of professional exchange programs that are aimed at promoting entrepreneurship and developing entrepreneurs. So check out your local U.S. Embassy on Facebook. Follow them on Facebook to learn about opportunities in Egypt, Marwa. So we welcome your interest. So next question, where are we this morning? So let me just remind everybody who we are. I'm Jennifer Zimdahl-Galt. I'm the newly arrived Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in the State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And Lisa is my colleague here from our Consular Affairs Bureau. So as I've said a couple of times this morning, I'm going to give Lisa all of your tough visa questions. So let's see. I think we have a couple of questions here. What are the criteria to qualify for a student visa? Lisa, I'm going to turn that one over to you. Maybe you can tell us, what are the criteria to qualify?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're wanting to study in the United States, the first criteria that you need is to apply to an institution and to find out what you actually want to study. Then, once you've determined where you would like to study, you will then need to follow up with the embassy or consulate website in your country to find out what the specific criteria are for the visa interview.
Good.
So you definitely need some forms, first of all, from the institution you'd like to study at in the United States. So you want to make sure you've applied and that you've received that document, which is called the I-20. Or if you're doing a short-term exchange, the DS 2019. So while these are a lot of numbers, these are going to be the most common ways that we refer to the application form. So again, reading up on all this material online on travel.state.gov is a great way to already be prepared for the kinds of questions you'll be asked and for the kinds of materials and forms that you'll need.
Terrific.
And really, you need to make sure a few things if you want to study in the United States. First of all, you know what you want to study. It makes sense with your current course of study or education programming. You want to make sure you've got some finances to be able to fund your course of study while you're in the United States. And you should have an idea of what your plans are. So how will your time in the United States studying or doing an exchange program fit into your overall life plan or life goals? I think that's also a really important thing to keep in mind when you're applying for a student visa or for studying in the United States.
Very important reminders. Thank you, Lisa, for that. We have another question from Maria Clara, who says that she has a tourist visa and she's wondering, can she also have a student visa at the same time? And I'm going to turn this over to you, Lisa, but I'm going to add a second question, which we've also had from many listeners today, which is, can I study in the United States on a tourist visa?
Those are really great questions. And like many things, it will depend on the course of study that you are pursuing. So there is an opportunity to participate in a very short course of study in the United States while you're on a tourist visa. It has to be less than 20 hours a week, and it cannot be the primary reason for your time in the United States. So this might be for someone, for example, who's coming to the United States on a tourist visa. Maybe they're just going to spend some time in New York City, for example, and they're coming to stay for a couple of weeks. While they're in New York City, they decide they want to take some dance classes. This would be the kind of educational experience or opportunity that they could do on in their tourist visa.
I see.
Now, if they're wanting to come and attend a dance school for a longer period of time in the United States, they would then need their student visa. So this would be kind of a major difference. Now, you can have both a tourist visa and a student visa at the same time.
Good to know. Good to know.
Will determine which visa you're entering the United States on is what, again, your purpose of travel or your purpose a visit to the United States is for. So if you're coming as a tourist and you have a student visa, you would let the border control officers know that you're coming as a tourist,
right?
And they would then let you in on your tourist visa. But if you're coming for your studies, you will need to have that student visa in your passport in order to come in to study in the United States.
Fabulous. Great reminders for everybody. Thank you, Lisa, for clarifying that. Our next question is from Mohammed, who is a very ambitious young man. He says, my wife and I are hoping to study PhDs in the US. Very impressive. What are the chances we can study at the same university, he says. Well, Mohammed, that depends on your and your wife's application process. So you would be applying each as individuals, and it would be up to you to find a university that can accommodate both of your academic study programs. So again, I would encourage you to be in touch with the Education in USA advisor in your hometown and find through them the institution that meets both of your academic goals. I hope you're able to achieve that goal. So Yassine from Algeria asks us, where can I look for scholarships in the US? So I think there are several different places where you can look, all online and all free. The first and foremost is, once again, our network of Education USA advisors around the world. Their mission is to provide you, prospective foreign students, information on how to navigate the US educational system, how to find the school that's right for you, how to find scholarship opportunities. A second place is to look on the website of the universities that you're thinking of applying to, because they may have programs that are specific to that university that might be targeted specifically at people from your country or in your field of study. A third place to look is exchanges.state.gov, another one of our State Department websites that advertises our huge variety of exchange programs. So a wealth of resources out there. I would encourage you to peruse those websites, and I'm confident you'll find some sources of funding that are suitable to your academic program. So Victor from Mexico says, we've had this question before, but we will ask Lisa to remind our listeners, are there any age limits for studying in the US?
Well, as the ambassador had mentioned previously, we welcome students of all ages
yes,
in the United States.
Absolutely.
And we think it's a great opportunity, and it certainly diversifies our student population as well, when we have individuals from all over the world in all different age groups. So we absolutely welcome anyone from any age in the United States. In terms of the actual visa itself, there is generally no age limit for that student visa. If you have been accepted to a university, then you are a qualified student and you qualify for the visa, then you can apply. The only potential difference would be for those summer work travel J visas, and those are generally going to be for students that are in a university or undergraduate degree, usually probably up till about 25, 26, and they're coming just for a short period of time during their summer break to do an exchange program in the United States. So that would probably be the only age limit area. But again, it will depend on the applicant and on the particular program, if that's the case.
Good to know. Good to know. So the next question we've had from a number of people in the course of this chat, but it's an important one. And again, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Can I change my visa status while I'm in the US, and how do I do that? So Lisa, you've described very clearly that when you go into the U.S. Embassy or Consulate to apply for your visa, the visa you will receive is based on the purpose of your travel. So student visa versus tourist visa, etc. What if you change your mind once you get to the U.S.? Can you do what's called adjusting your status? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I will do my best, but I think this is a great time to talk about the differences between the U.S. Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security.
Very important distinction.
And I think particularly for students, because they end up interacting with both of these agencies, government agencies,
right,
at different times in their student visa process.
Exactly right.
And so I think it can be very important. So what I like to say, it's probably a very simple approach, but I like to think of anything outside of the borders of the United States is going to be in the domain of the Department of State.
Good way to think about it.
Anything inside the border of the United States will be with the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
And so this is going to go to this question. Once you're in the United States and you've entered on your student visa or another type of visa and you're wanting to change, as you mentioned, adjust your status, that's going to be a question for the Department of Homeland Security.
Exactly right.
Specifically the U.S. Customs, USCIS, U.S. Customs and Immigration Service. So I encourage you to go to their website and look at the information that's available on their website on how to adjust your status or change from one visa category to maybe a different kind of status. Some visas you can do that, some you cannot. And so they really are going to be the best source of information for that question.
Great, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. We have two different government agencies who take care of you when you think about and come to the United States to study.
Absolutely.
So the next question we have is from Morocco, who asks, how can I find out where I can take an English test near me? So again, our Education USA advising centers around the world are the best places to find out where English language exams are offered in your country or near where you live. So check those out for finding out where you can take the English exam, either in your home city or nearby. The next question we have is from Redwan, who says, my passport will expire before my visa. What should I do? Great question. Obviously, you can't even apply for a visa if your passport has expired. But what if your passport expires while your visa is still good and you're studying in the United States? That sounds like a tough one, so over to you, Lisa.
Absolutely. So this is a very common question. So thank you for asking this question, because I know a lot of folks, a lot of students, and a lot of other visitors to the United States have this kind of question. If you have a valid visa, you also will need a valid passport, but they don't need to be exactly the same. So the valid visa does not necessarily have to be in the valid passport. So you can have your valid visa in one passport. You can apply for a brand new passport from your home government, and then you can travel with both of those. So you need to travel with your valid passport and with the expired passport that has the valid visa in it.
Great to know.
The two of them together. Now, if there's something like a name change or some other kind of specific change, sometimes it might be easier to then apply for a new visa in the new passport, because it will reduce the challenges and the problems you may face when you're traveling with two different kinds of documents.
Good point.
But you don't have to do that. You absolutely just need to travel with the valid visa and your valid passport.
Fabulous. Huge relief, I hope, to everybody. Thank you for that. So a number of people have asked another question, which again, I'm going to turn over to Lisa. Can I work while I'm studying in the United States? Great question.
Really good
Trust
question.
you have an equally great answer.
So this is a very common question, because many times students are coming, and part of their financial ability to pay for their education or to live in the United States is dependent on being able to work in the United States.
Right.
So depending on the program that you are participating in, you may possibly work for no more than 20 hours per week, I believe, in the United States.
Yes, I think that's right.
Now, much of this is also dependent, I think, on the university or the kind of program that you're pursuing.
Right.
Now, if you want to, once you finish that education, that course of study, you've received a degree, there is something called OPT, or optional optional practical training that could be something you do afterwards that's for a period of time that's in the industry or in the area that you have just finished studying. And that would be a question, again, once you're in the United States, we're going to talk to the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service. They're the ones that are going to have information about that particular course of work or ability to work, because you are in the United States, so that's who you're going to ask that question to. I also recommend talking to the Education USA advisors at an embassy or consulate in your country, and also talking to the student advisor at the university where you will be studying, because this is something they're very familiar with and can provide you with the best information about how to work while you're in the United States studying.
Very common question. Great answer. Thank you, Lisa, for helping us understand that. The next question is from Shahidul, says, my 8-year-old daughter wants to study in the U.S. What's your advice? Fabulous to hear that a young child is already aspiring to study in the United States. Shahidul, we would welcome your daughter coming, but perhaps after a few years. 8 does feel a little bit young to be coming on her own to the U.S., so we would encourage her to study English. I'm sure you can find an English club for students. Perhaps she could find something through the U.S. Embassy, through one of our Fulbright English teaching assistants in the country where you live. Perhaps there are Peace Corps volunteers where you are who teach English, who would welcome your daughter's participation. And then after a few years of study, I would imagine that she would be eligible to come to the United States on a high school program or even a university program. So glad that she's already thinking about the United States. We will welcome her in a few years. Thank you for that question. So it appears we have already come to the end of our chat, and we have one final question, and it's a great one. So the question is, what is Education USA? Great question, given that I have been talking about Education USA throughout. I probably should have begun with a definition of what it is. But I'm very pleased to tell our listeners today that Education USA is the State Department's network of international student advising centers, and we actually have them in 176 countries. So I trust that all of you who've been listening to us and following us this morning, this evening, are in one of those 176 countries, and we encourage you to look for the nearest Education USA Advising Center nearest to you on the website, which is educationusa.state.gov. So we provide this network of centers in order to provide free, reliable information about studying in the U.S., about fellowship opportunities, and about many of the topics that we've been talking about this morning. So that brings us to the end of our discussion. I want to thank our viewers for all of your great questions this morning. I want to thank my colleague Lisa from the State Department's Bureau of Consular Affairs for handling all of your tough questions and giving me the easy job of talking about some of the exchange programs that the State Department offers. We've talked about Fulbright today, and to talk about our Education USA advising centers. Thank you, everybody. Follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.